Today, I've got for you 14 lies you've been told about food tracking. And these 14 lies are based on one big lie, which is that you need to track your food in order to lose weight. Food tracking has nothing to do with weight loss. Fat loss requires a few different variables. We need to have a safe nervous system state. I think this is really important. We have to send safe signals to our nervous system by actually adequately nourishing ourselves. So adequate nutrition is one of the factors in fat loss. Second factor is an energy deficit. And the third factor is we have to have good function of our metabolic machinery. If we don't have all three of those factors going, we're not going to lose fat. But the main lie is that you need to be tracking and micromanaging the quantities of your food in order to achieve fat loss, and you don't. You don't need to. So right out the gate, we need to forget that sort of foundational factor. You don't need to track your food to lose weight. In fact, when I posted this on Instagram, a woman said, "I wish that were true. Without tracking, I very gradually gain weight despite being quite active. Last week, I didn't track for 2 days and I gained 1 kilogram." No, no. Not tracking for 2 days is not why this woman gained 1 kilogram. Also, there's no way she gained 1 kilogram, which is 2.2 pounds in 2 days. That's not even real. Do you see how this has created confusion and almost lobotomized us away from understanding our bodies? If we're just micromanaging this. And by the way, the entire practice of measuring and tracking our food is maybe 50, maybe 60 years old. Like, it's a couple generations old. Now, I don't know what you believe about human evolution, but I believe we've been around for a lot longer than that. We've been around for quite a long time. In most of our evolutionary history, we did not track our food and we were fine. Only in the last couple generations have we started tracking our food. Now, why maybe did that come into play? Well, in the last couple generations, we also had the introduction of processed foods. So big emphasis on processed foods, hyper palatable, hypo-satiating food. What does that mean? Hyperpalatable means very easy to overeat and overconsume, very exciting to eat. So we just want to eat and eat and eat. Hypo-satiating means almost no satiety factor. So easy to overeat with no satiety. If we're eating foods like that, yeah, you're going to have to put some guardrails around it. But let me ask you this. Why would you eat that food? You're not a fucking unsupervised 8-year-old in a candy store. You're a grown-ass adult. So as long as we're eating like grown-ass adults, eating human food that's generally nutritious most of the time, we don't have to count that. Yeah, if you're living a processed food diet, it would be worthwhile to put some boundaries around how much of that you're eating. But you already know not to eat a processed food diet. You didn't need a nutritionist to tell you that. I think the advent of the obesity epidemic coincides with the introduction of processed food, coincides with us starting to now feel like we need to count and track this stuff. But you can see how that's all a pretty modern cultural construct. We go back to brass tacks of the human body and weight loss. We don't need to track our food. We've never needed to. Okay. So here are 14 lies. And let me tell you, I could have come up with a lot more, but these 14 are ones that I want to share with you today. Number 1, everyone should track their food for a little while just to get a benchmark. Okay. So this idea is, well, you don't have to track it all the time, but you should track it at least for a bit just to see where you're at. You should track your carbs just to see how many carbs you're eating and try to restrict those. You should track your protein, see how much protein you're eating. You should try to increase that. I don't believe you need to track your food ever. Food tracking is always unnecessary, as far as I'm concerned. And the people that I work with have been traumatized by food tracking. So the last thing you need to be doing, if you're a Gen X woman or even an elder millennial, is tracking your food. I don't know how we expect to go through the rest of our lives doing this. Like, I've been doing this shit since I was a teenager. I can't even imagine a world where from like age 15 to 95, I'm tracking my food for 80 years. There's no way that's happening. We're going to stop doing it at some point. So why even start? So I see no world where we have to track it ever. I think tracking food is 100% always unnecessary. As long as you know how to eat nourishing food, which I know sounds crazy. Like, of course I know how to eat, crazy lady. I don't think most women do. That's what I really do work on with my clients, is like how to eat to achieve appropriate nutrient signaling so that you know how much of what you need to eat. Food really often portion controls itself. And we're going to hear a lot more about that as we go through these 14 list items here. Number 2, you must strive to get a certain amount of protein grams every day. This is false because for many reasons. First of all, your nutrient needs are constantly in flux. So you might need 150 grams of protein today, but you might only need 85 grams the next day. And you can trust that your body knows exactly what its nutrient needs are. Your nutrient needs, including amino acids, are tightly regulated by your brain. Your brain is tabulating your nutrient needs at all times and queuing up a hunger signal when it's like, okay, we need some nourishment. We need something here. Protein ends up being the leverage point for the appetite signal. This is the protein leverage hypothesis. It's believed that protein is the leverage point for the appetite signal. By that, I mean that when the body realizes it needs more amino acids, the building blocks of the human body, it will cue up a hunger signal so that we consume food that ideally has protein in it so we can get, amino acids, but also other nutrition like minerals, hydration, vitamins, phytonutrition, micronutrition, fiber, all the component parts of food, including fuel, but not just fuel. Okay, so what's common in the narrative right now is this idea that you need hundreds and hundreds of grams of protein per day. Okay, so the math is like 1 gram per pound of body weight or 0.8 grams per pound of body weight, or you're seeing all different kinds of calculations. And now we are, as far as I'm concerned, unnecessarily obsessing about our grams of protein. It's no different than tracking your calories or obsessing about your grams of fat, which we did in the 90s, or obsessing about your grams of carbs, which we did in the keto era. Now we're obsessing about our grams of protein. When does it end? At the end of the day, your nutrient needs are constantly in flux and they're tightly controlled by your brain. And if you can pick up your appetite signal, your hunger signal, and your satiety signal, the handshake of appetite, if you can pick these up, these signals, and answer them appropriately, I believe you can learn to do that because you have this innate wisdom in your brain and body. You are an animal. You know how to eat food. We've been doing this for millennia. Prior to the 70s or 80s when the processed food and food tracking industry came to be, we did this fine. We can do it again. But believing that you need to hit 127.6 grams of something per day is absolutely fake news. In fact, if you ever work with a macro coach, and I do come down on macro coaching quite a bit because the macro coach tells you how many grams of food you need to eat. How does that person know what you need to eat? That person does not exist in your body. They use some online calculator and came up with this math, gave you the math, and now you're like, aye, Captain. Whatever you say, macro coach, this is how much I need to eat because my macro coach told me to. It's crazy. Your nutrient needs are tightly regulated by the brain, constantly in flux, and they're communicated to you through your appetite signals. Frankly, you probably do need to eat more protein. If you're a woman and you're watching this, you're probably not eating enough protein for your body's needs. The most common day of eating I hear for a woman is a protein shake in the morning, a salad with chicken for lunch, and then some version of the family meal at dinner time, and then tons of little snackies in between, which are like crackers and 100-calorie snack packs of popcorn and carrots and hummus and granola bars and nuts and cheese and things that don't have any protein because nuts and cheese, we're not counting that as protein. You're probably not eating enough protein. You could eat more, but you don't have to track any of it. You can just eat more. You can look at your plate and say, oh, can I put an extra metaphorical egg on this breakfast plate? Ta-da! Now you've just eaten more protein. You didn't have to track it. Number 3 lie you've been told about food tracking. Calculate your basal metabolic rate and make all food decisions based off of that. Okay, so maybe you don't know what the basal metabolic rate is. This is the base level number of calories that your body needs to function, breathe, blink, move, process nutrients, like the basic basal needs of your body. So this is ground floor nutrient needs. Sometimes you might go to the gym and they will calculate your basal metabolic rate once again using some kind of online calculator. And these online calculators have some degree of actual accuracy, but here's what happens with that number. Let's say you get your basal metabolic rate tested and it says your basal metabolic rate is 1,327 calories a day. So that's the amount of just basic food energy your body needs to function at rest. Women will hear that number and say, okay, I can't eat more than 1,327 calories. I can never eat more than that. But you're working out, you're walking, you're lifting weights, you're thinking, you're being, you're puttering, you're parenting, you're doing stuff. Your actual daily calorie needs are much higher than your basal metabolic rate. So whenever I hear women have gone and gotten their basal metabolic rate tested at the gym, I know we have a problem because that means you're under eating. You're now eating less than your basic nutrient needs. That isn't going to work. You think you're going to out willpower your basic nutrient needs? There's no way. Now, the other calculation that comes up sometimes is called TDEE. total daily energy expenditure. And this would include your basal metabolic rate and your non-exercise activity and your exercise activity and the thermic effect of actually eating and digesting food. There's a whole bunch of things that come into this. Total daily energy expenditure is a higher number. Let's say if your BMR is 1327, your TDEE might be 1800. Even that number, though, is still invented. And it suggests that every single day you have the same energy needs. That's not true. Some days you're going to need more, some days you're going to need less. Your nutrient needs are tightly regulated by your brain, not by an online calculator. Number 4 lie you've been told about food tracking. You need to stay under X number of calories to lose weight. This just springboards off of what I just talked about. Your metabolism is not a math problem. Your body is not a dumb calculator. And by the way, a calorie is not even a fuel substrate that the body uses. The body has 3 fuel substrates: fat, carbohydrate, and ketones. Calorie is not on the list. Calorie is a unit of potential food energy. But when the food comes into your body, it breaks down into these fuel substrates. And the way your body uses fuel, this is a metabolic process, not dumb math. You're not just a bag of bones and organs processing calories. There's a metabolic system at work here, a very elegant dynamic system that's responsive to your environmental inputs. It's deciding on what type of fuel it needs to use based on what you're doing. But at the end of the day, if it were a matter of eating fewer calories, we'd have solved this problem a long time ago, because if there's one thing we're good at, it's counting calories and restricting calories. At least we're good at it for a few days. We're good at it for a few days and then we're not good at it. We fall off the wagon, right? Why? Because we're hungry. Because we're solving this problem of excess body fat in the wrong way by obsessing about the math of calories. This is a system. The fat that's stuck on your body is a fuel that's stuck. Why is it stuck there? What is the reason why that fuel is stuck on your body? There's some kind of metabolic pathway that's broken down there, or the 3 factors that I referred to earlier that shore up to fat loss, which would be your nervous system state, sending signals to your body that it's safe to let go of this stored fat. Number 2 is the energy deficit. Number 3 is well-functioning metabolic machinery. One or all of those systems is broken down, and tracking your food is not the solution for it. Solving the problem at the root is the solution. But the fact that we think if I just buckle up and count, I'm going to fix all these problems in my body is actually insane. I'm sorry, that's not your fault, because the health fitness dieting industry is a multi-trillion-dollar industry, and it's so confusing. And I know that I just want to stop midway through my list here to acknowledge that I know that I might be lending to the confusion, and I'm sorry about that, because now I'm a dissenting voice. But I just want you to keep listening and see if any of this rings true at all for you. And at the end of this list of 14 things, you might say, screw you, lady. I'm not convinced. I'm too nervous to throw caution to the wind and stop tracking my food. There is some trauma bonding around food tracking. We feel like we have to do it even though we hate it. But you don't have to do it. I'm just here to give you the good news. You don't have to do it. It's not really helping you, obviously. Number 5, food tracking helps you stay accountable. Food tracking helps you stay neurotic and actually disconnects you from your beautiful appetite cues. So food tracking helps you stay accountable to what? The invented math that your macro coach gave you? Why would we need to be accountable to that? What if instead of being accountable to a meal plan or a macro breakdown, we were actually accountable to our body's own hunger signals, your own appetite cues? What if you're accountable to those and you just adequately answered hunger when you felt it with appropriate human food? So this idea of staying accountable, and by the way, I get this when women talk about getting on the scale as well to weigh themselves. I just want to make sure things aren't getting away from me. My question back is, what things? Like what? So food tracking helps you stay accountable to what? So Braden, your personal trainer, told you not to eat more than 80 grams of carbohydrate today. Why? You're being accountable to that for what purpose? Did he explain to you why? Do you know why that you're doing that? No, you're just blindly following the math. What kind of accountability is that? To me, that's lobotomization. That's not accountability. That's like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just going to follow this. There's no accountability there. It's just blindly following. I think my definition of accountability is different than maybe the industry, because for me, it's like I'm self-accountable. I'm accountable to this body of mine, this meat suit, this amazing, elegant technology that I was given at birth. I'm accountable to this. I'm not accountable to some outside force. In fact, I'm a nutritionist and a health coach. People often think they're going to be accountable to me. And I push back. I'm like, no. You have to be accountable to yourself. You got to come back into your body. and be accountable to yourself, because I'm a stranger from the internet. There's no reason to be accountable to me. So food tracking does not help you stay accountable. Or if it does, you're staying accountable to math that doesn't even pertain to your body. What's the point of that? Number 6 lie you've been told about food tracking is that if you don't track your food, you're just guessing. And my pushback on this is no, you're not guessing, you're learning. Tracking creates a false sense of precision to these arbitrary numbers. The math that you're tracking up to is arbitrary. So it was a guess right out the gate. Somebody guessed at how many calories and macros you needed, and now you're following that. It is all guessing. But if you listen to your hunger signals, you're paying attention, you're learning, you're trusting. That's a more productive experience. Your body gives you very trustworthy info, more trustworthy than your macro coach does, because your macro coach just pulled that down from an online calculator. Did I mention that? It's invented. But your body is giving you a hunger signal. It's giving you a satiety signal. It's queuing up cravings. It's giving you energy signals. It's queuing up mood or motivation signals. It's in how you sleep. It's in how you stress. It's in how you live. It's in how you interact with people. All of these signals from your body are worth paying attention to. But what we do instead is we just turn off our intuition and just zero in on the arbitrary math. Number 7 lie you've been told. If you don't track, you'll overeat. That's not true. There's no truth to that. You can overeat tracking or not tracking. But I believe you can learn to trust your innate hunger and fullness cues. These are your built-in portion control system. I staunchly believe you can learn to trust these signals. My whole weight loss program is based on that. Like, hey, your body actually knows how much it needs. What if you just started listening to that? What you'd find is when you're eating appropriate food at appropriate times, answering appropriate hunger to appropriate satiety, it's all appropriate. There's no overconsumption. You're just eating enough. It's enough. We get into overconsumption when we've restricted. Restrict, binge, restrict, binge. Where does restriction come from? It comes from your meal plan. That comes from your macro plan. That comes from holding back on calories because somebody tested your basal metabolic rate. Now you're starving yourself. Then you're going to overconsume. But if you eat enough at mealtime, that's enough. That's enough. You're not going to eat beyond enough. You're going to get to enough and you're going to put your fork down. So learning how to eat enough, tapping into your body's built-in portion control system means you're not going to overeat. Number 8, tracking helps you stay on track. And my pushback to this is stay on track with what? I said that earlier. Blindly accepting and following the arbitrary math that has nothing to do with you? Why would you need to be on track with that? That's crazy. The whole notion of being on track is dieting parlance. I just think about animals a lot. Whenever I'm in here at my desk doing these talks, I'm looking out my window, and outside my window is my 4 horses. And they're not worried about staying on track with their grass eating. They're getting it done. But, it's funny, just parenthetically, show horses do go on diets. They're sort of portioned out their portions of hay, and they're hungry and they're thin. And then when they get out of the show circuit, they binge and get fat. Actually using animals as the example is a little depressing because we have domesticated animals and given them our food issues. It's crazy. But anyway, staying on track with what? Number 9 lie you've been told. Oh, this one is a major bee in my bonnet. Tracking makes you more mindful of food. False. Tracking makes you mindless. You're mindlessly following the math. There's no mindfulness in macro tracking. There's no mindfulness in calorie tracking. You are not remotely mindful. You're just obediently following the parameters of the plan you were given. It is mindless to track your food. It's like, I'll just put it on the scale and weigh it out and write it in my book. There's no mindfulness to that. Mindful would be, how do I feel? What does my body need? Answering the clearly communicated appetite signals of your body is mindful. And tracking food is the opposite of that. I cannot stress this enough. It is the most mindless act to track your food. Number 10, if you don't track, you might lose control. This goes back to the woman who commented on my Instagram post who lost control. She didn't track for 2 days and gained 2 pounds. There's no way. My counterpoint to this is tracking food makes you lose control. So you will do this. We've all done it. I'm going to track my food. And then you get so sick of it, you don't want to do it anymore because it sucks. It's brutal. It's just the most brutal, boring relationship with food ever. And you don't want to do it. There are a few outliers who will do it and enjoy doing it and are going to be those people who went from age 15 to age 95, 80 years of food tracking. That is so crazy that we think that's how a human is supposed to engage with food. That never happened before now. That is brand new, right? But tracking food because you don't want to do it and it's completely unnatural and you don't like it. You don't like doing it. You're going to stop doing it. You're going to get sick of it. You're going to say F it. And then because the pendulum has now swung from I'm being a virtuous food tracker to F it, I'm just going to burn it all down, we're having these wild swings. We lose control when we put too much control. If there's too much control, we will lose control. But guess what? There's this whole gray area right in the middle between those two ends of the pendulum. Just like moderate, normal eating. Trusting my appetite signals, trusting my satiety cue, eating nutrient-dense human food in the portions that my body determines it needs via my appetite signals. There's no loss of control in the middle here. It's just really boring. I've been in this boring middle zone for 15 years. And what I will say to people is the reason why I don't struggle with my body and I don't struggle with my diet and I don't spend any time of my life obsessing about food is because I don't really overdo it on anything. I don't overdo it on virtue. I don't overdo it on naughty. I just stay right in the middle, just eating my human food when I feel hungry, going all the way to satiety. And I can pack a suitcase and go on a beach vacation. And I know all those sundresses fit. And I know all those bikinis look the way they looked last year and 5 years ago. And I haven't bought a new bikini in 10 years because my bikini from 10 years ago still fits and looks the same. So just to say it again, tracking food makes you lose control. You're only in control for the brief, fleeting moments of time that you're actually obediently doing it, but you're not good at it and you don't want to do it. So then what do? You lose control. If you weren't even tracking in the first place, there would have been no loss of control. Number 11, tracking food is scientific and evidence-based. Oh, the evidence-based gets thrown around as a slur almost, or a point of pride in some wellness circles. Evidence-based. But evidence-based has 4 pillars to it, just so we're clear. Research evidence, practice evidence, so practical application, patient evidence, the experience of the patients, and then contextual evidence in the context of this lived experience that the human is having. So evidence-based is actually not just research, it's all these other things. So what I see sometimes in my social feed is that tracking food is scientific and evidence-based, based on some research, based on maybe some practical or clinical experience, but it's not necessarily based on you. It's not contextual. It doesn't factor in your life. So it's not totally evidence-based. But here's the other thing I'll say. Your body is a literal suit made of science. It's very scientific, this body you're walking around in. And your appetite signals are metabolic signals. Metabolism is also science. It's the science of metabolic biochemistry. And all the evidence you need about your nutrient needs is clearly communicated to you from your brain, not from your macro coach. So the evidence is when I feel hungry, I eat food to satiety, and it works. And then I'm not over-consuming food and I'm feeling very healthy in my body. There's evidence for you. But the idea that we have to get our science from outside of us is crazy. The science is in you. You are science. You're made of science. Number 12, lie you've been told about food tracking is the entire concept of daily nutrient requirements. I will die on this sword. Your nutrient needs do not magically reset to 0 at midnight while you're sleeping. You don't wake up with like a 0 on the calculator every morning. Your body is in real time processing its nutrient needs. Nutrient needs are constantly dynamically in flux, and the time horizon is infinite. It is always communicated to you through your appetite signals, point blank, period. Some days you're going to be extra hungry. That could be because you did legs at the gym yesterday, or maybe you're in your luteal phase of your cycle, or maybe, who knows, maybe your immune system's battling some illness and it's trying to bolster you while you're in the early stages of fighting an illness. Other days you're going to have low appetite. Maybe you've been sedentary. Maybe you are in the middle of sickness and your immune system's like, don't eat right now, we're busy. All kinds of reasons why you would be more or less hungry from day to day. But to suggest you need 1,794.3 calories every single day of your life is crazy. It's insane. It doesn't make any sense. I love helping my clients ride the fluctuations of appetite. And by the way, I'm delighted when they come in and say things like, wow, I'm really hungry today. I've had like 5 meals and like I'm eating so much protein and just like, wow, I'm ravenously hungry. It's like, that's amazing that you're feeling that. And what's going to happen is that's going to level out and come down. I'm probably going to have a low appetite day in a few days' time. Because the body is just kind of always managing its basic nutrient needs, but that those nutrient needs change from moment to moment, day to day. Your metabolic clock does not reset to 0 at midnight. The 13th lie you've been told about food tracking is that food tracking makes weight loss easier. And all I can say to this is, are you kidding me? There's nothing easy about it. Food tracking is the absolute most brutal, boring, terrible thing. You hate doing it. You already know it's exhausting. You already know it's a complete drag. It is not easy. Sure, you can do it because you can suck it up and do lots of things that you hate. But why should you have to? You already know that you hate food tracking because you tried and failed at it dozens of times. So it's not working. It's not working for you. You're not going to do it. Neither am I, by the way. Never again. And it's not because you're undisciplined or lazy or something. It's because food tracking is lame and sad and brutal and unnecessary. Okay. 14th and final lie you've been told about food tracking is that you don't have clear appetite signals and or you can't trust them. But here's a crazy idea. If you don't think you have trustworthy appetite signals, it's probably because you've never taken a minute to try to trust them because you've been following calorie and macro coaches for too long. And they lobotomized you from trusting your own appetite signals. So you can't say to me, I don't have clear appetite signals. I'll say, when have you ever tried listening to them? Because you probably haven't, except for when you were like an infant. You did it when you were a baby. You definitely did. And then diet programming got its little freaking tentacles on you. And ever since then, you've believed that you're some defective, malfunctioning human that has no clear appetite signals. Bullshit. Yes, you do. This is a biologically imperative body system. Your body has to know at all times what its nutrient needs are. It has to be able to communicate it to you. You have to be able to understand it. The fact that you aren't understanding it is because you haven't been paying attention, because you've been counting and tracking your food. So here's a crazy idea. Stop tracking your food. Forget it exists because it didn't exist for millennia prior to your mom. Your mom was like the first generation of woman who started tracking her food. Start learning to listen, trust, respect, and respond to your body. This is your absolute birthright. Food tracking is an insane modern human construct that you hate. A minute ago, I referenced that your mom was kind of your introduction to this paradigm. And I do believe that's true because women have been the dieters. We're the dieters. Now, what I think is interesting is that lots of men are doing food tracking now. So a lot of the calorie proponents that you see on the internet are what I call calorie bros. I didn't invent that term. That term has been long invented by other people and often used because these calorie bros are boys. They're boys in the gym trying to get swole. Don't listen to them. That's not you. You're a woman. You're living your life. You're trying to just feel comfortable in the clothes you have hanging in your closet. You have normal human nutrient needs. They fluctuate based on what's going on in your body. That's how it works for all humans. But you don't have to pay attention to your food to that degree of extreme obsession. There's no need to do that. You're not trying to dramatically recompose your body into some bodybuilder paradigm. I really hope you're not trying to starve yourself into thinness. I hope we've gotten to the point where we've kind of outgrown that. We're just trying to feel comfortable in our clothes. I swear to goodness, that's the one soundbite I hear from women. I'll say, please quantify for me what your weight loss goal feels like. And they'll say, I just want to fit the clothes in my closet. Guess what? You can fit all those clothes in your closet without ever tracking your food again. I have 100% confidence that you can do this. And I know you don't feel confident. So you got to borrow my confidence until you get yours back. But I'm hoping that these 14 little truth bombs I dropped in this talk will help you to start to think differently about your body and trust that you can move away from weird ass dieting, come back home to your body, your beautiful, elegant, amazing body that's been signaling to you what it needs and how much it needs. This technology is born into you. It has been for millennia. We've been ignoring it for a couple generations, but we don't have to keep doing that. You don't have to track your food. You've never had to track your food. You don't want to do it. You don't like to do it. The whole thing is a made up, ridiculous dieting construct. And you can stop caring about it. I grant you permission.